Amen. Okay, so this is the part we call the afterburn. I mean, I had a thought as we're just closing this up here. Let's assume there was a way to prove that just because it's me talking, that I was legitimately what this is talking about. I was one of those people. One of those people Paul was talking about in Ephesians 4. What would that person have to do to convince you? Do you understand what I'm saying here? If the person speaking, not just me, I'm saying the person standing here was actually legitimately what Moses was talking about in Deuteronomy, what Paul was talking about in Ephesians, what could they possibly do to earn or prove themselves to you so that you would do the Deuteronomy and the Ephesians request and responsibility to submit to that authority? Is there even anything that they could do short of he says, don't look for the magic and the diviners. What would I have to do to impress you to believe all that? I mean, think about it. I'm going to use Yeshua's words. Don't believe me that I am whatever this role is. Believe the works. Believe the teachings. Believe either they come from him. Don't worry about me and my personality and my life and maybe mistakes I've made in my life and you've all made mistakes in your own, whatever. Is the evidence for Yeshua says, look at the fruit. Don't believe me, look at the fruit. It's the Father's fruit. I mean, if you think that these teachings are from me and that there's no inspired Ruach involvement in this, I give up. I don't know what else to do. I mean, would you want that person to never be strong about trying to explain leadership and try to get you to understand it? Would you expect them to just tiptoe around it and just expect you'll spontaneously just figure out that they're leading and that you need to follow, whatever? I mean, what would you expect what would that look like to you? How would you describe what that would actually function like? Because I know a lot of people think I'm doing this all wrong. How would you know that? I mean, what would it look like? Because I know there are times when I feel like I need to always hedge, because everybody's just going to take everything I say, bend it and twist it and turn it into some cultist leader thing. Okay? I don't think it's wrong for me to say, I think I'm one of these guys that Paul is talking about. That I'm here to help the body to grow and transform into the completeness and the fullness of Yeshua Messiah. Otherwise, why would I be standing here? So I'm not beating around that idea anymore, okay? But I'm also not claiming to be like some high, mighty whatever that everybody needs to do whatever. Just listen and apply this stuff in your life. That's all I want. I don't need any whatever you might think, aggrandizement and, whatever, fame, something. Well, I don't know what you think. If you listen to the teachings, I don't know how you get anything out of it other than, I want you to do this stuff. Why? Because I want you to get from here to there safely. Is there anything more I can do to convince you? Well, you just, all right. So then I asked the question, what would anybody be able to do to convince you? What does a leader have to do to convince you that you should listen to Yahweh through them? That's a question you need to answer. You don't need to give me the answer. You need to answer for yourself. And then if you figure that out and you find somebody miraculously that actually meets all of your criteria, by the way, you should figure out what he said, which is what we read today in Deuteronomy 18, okay? That whole part of Deuteronomy 18 is to show you this is not talking about Yeshua exclusively. This is a response to them saying, from here until the end, we don't want to hear from you directly. Oh, no, we have the Ruach now, and that's all been changed since Yeshua and blah. Nonsense. He sent his disciples out to do everything Moses was talking about. He didn't say to the disciples, go tell everybody just to pray, and the Ruach will teach them everything. He never said that. He said, you go and disciple everybody. Go out to the nations and find people that are interested in being discipled. Discipling is heavy-duty, intense instruction. And it's not sitting in a classroom with 50 other people or more, just listening to the information, writing it down, and going home and doing whatever you want with it. You are accountable to that discipler. That discipler can get in your face. That discipler can, whatever needs to be done, because they are responsible now in a relationship like a father to a son. It's that kind of relationship. Oh, but you don't want that. You want the idea that you've had about that, but you don't want that. And I don't know what else to say. I would love it then if just another person would show up and be able to do all those signs and wonders and all the other things. But you know what? That's probably going to be the false one you'll end up following. Because if you listen to Beware False Prophets, when the false one comes, he's going to wow the world with, no circus ever did such a good show. The miracles that are going to be happening all over the place. And you guys are going to go flock to that nonsense. And then they're really going to throw tomatoes at me when I'm screaming, he's not it. And you're all hiding from the bullets going at me, trying to get out of the way from collateral damage. What kind of boldness do you want out of that position? Oh, but we read some things about you, this, that, whatever. You can read stuff about anybody. Everybody's led their life and done things. There's an awful lot out there that I didn't do that I'm being accused of, but there's also stuff in my life I did do. None of us is perfect. You did stuff in your life that you're not maybe proud of, and you don't need, but you're now where you are. Was there anybody in this book that you can point to other than Yeshua who was perfect? So we honor them. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, David. David wasn't perfect. Okay? All these people we hold in high, Paul, the other apostles. Well, Matthew, he was a publican, he was a tax collector, that evil, awful guy. Well, now we have a book with his name on it. It's one of the 4 Gospels. But what are you looking at? The fruit. Do you know we have no information of Yeshua between 13 and when he started his ministry, pretty much from 30? I'm not saying he did anything wrong during those years, but you know what? Apparently, everything he did during those years wasn't important to what he did when he was 30. That was what was important. So you could worry about all these things about everybody's life and previous life and whatever they're doing, or you can look at what's happening now. What is that person doing now? What's been going on? When I did Are You Saved the first time, well, I shouldn't say the first time, that was back in 2001 or something. When I did it, almost 8 years ago, the person who did not like that teaching and went all over everywhere to, eviscerate me, claimed in the eviscerating response to my teaching that I would be teaching people and leading people away from Yeshua. It's been 8 years, my friend. Anytime you're going to withdraw that nonsense? Anybody listening to me for 8 years hear me teaching anything but Yeshua? You see, but that stuff's still out there. Oh, and you guys are still out there. There's people still listening to him. Even though he falsely accused and claimed I was doing something I was not doing, only because his once saved, always saved mind could not receive the information. I'll get on my knees and plead with you. What does it take to get you to just hear him? Don't worry about me. Hear him. I have the microphone. So hear him through this microphone. Okay, you're not going to just hear him from anybody. You're going to hear it through somebody with a microphone. That's the way things are done in 2000, the 21st century. But don't just listen to anybody with a microphone. Go through the Deuteronomy 18 sort of process and look at what's going on. Look, if this isn't like at least a wake-up call, this pandemic, to what could be coming down the pike, and I'm not saying the end of the world is anytime near, but it could be. Near meaning a few years, but it could be. We could be heading down a path towards some real end times. Who knows? But it should be a wake-up call because your life is your life, and you don't know how long that's going to be. A bunch of people got COVID-19 and are now dead that did not see that coming. A bunch of people got hit by cars and are now dead, didn't see that coming. A bunch of people, there's a million different things that people all of a sudden found themselves with and are now dead, didn't see it coming, and cut their life shorter than they ever thought it would be. What is it going to take to get this? You want to know how you're going to have peace? Follow what the book says. The book says you're going to find peace through him, through structure. It's called a covenantal structure. In that covenantal structure, he said it in Deuteronomy 18. The Torah covenant is going to be spoken to you through prophets. Not people just saying what's going to happen in the future. People who are speaking what Yahweh is saying so that people can hear it. If you don't think I'm doing it, then stop watching. Again, it's not pride or ego. I'm trying to be more effective because some of you are still struggling to Shema. And he said to Shema that teacher. He says, if you don't Shema that teacher, I will require it of you, that prophet. I said teacher because a lot of you still can't wrap your brain around what prophet means. You think all of a sudden I'm just, my ego is just raging out of control right now. It's going to be all over Facebook. Rabbi Steve thinks he's a prophet now. Of course I'm a prophet. I'm speaking the word of Yahweh with authority, but not in some aggrandized way. You just don't know what a prophet is. You got the wrong understanding. You're elevating it into some sort of, big deal more than it is. It's a big deal. It's simply being a vessel to speak his word with authority. That's it. No ring to kiss, no royalty, no fawning and whatever. Just hear and do what he's saying. I'm just providing it with the words. Okay? That's all I want. That's all any prophet wants. Would you just do what he wants? That's what I want. Do what he wants. Do what he said, covenant, and do. Shema, the Torah instructions. All right? All right. Because I don't know what else to say. And I'm just saying this in response to, I know they're smearing and attacking. And a lot of you will call me and say, or send me the link. I'm not worried about it. You're never going to stop the haters. Okay? And you don't need to defend me or defend. Just like you don't have to defend him. You don't have to defend anybody. Okay? If somebody's doing a personal attack on your family members, and then fine, defend them. But the ministry is not going to be hurt by just people attacking it. The ministry is not mine, it's his. He will protect it or not. That's his choice. Okay? It's still okay if you let us know that something's happening so we're aware of it, but just understand we're not going to be afraid of it like we've been talking about because it's something that we can't do anything about. So we're going to allow him to send the hornets. We're going to allow him to send the hornets. He'll deal with it. If there's something we can do, he'll tell us, and then we'll do something. All right, Manny, I gave you lots of time now, so with the second sermon.
Yeah, you did. It's awesome. Actually, I've only literally have about 5 questions.
Oh, good.
But you'll have to go back and actually view this. There's a lot of messages to you directly. Just tons of encouragement.
I appreciate that.
I think you'll really enjoy it. Just a lot of encouraging words out there for you.
Okay, let me just say this. I want to ask another question. I asked you about how you would know. Let me ask you another question. How would you act if you were a prophet? How would you feel about trying to explain humbly as you can what it means to do that? How would that person sound? Would they, because I've been hiding from and avoiding and trying to, because I'm always afraid that people are just going to accuse me of being a raging egomaniac or think that I'm trying to be some king controlling. No. The higher the positional thing, the more the servant, not the more the elevated. This is not like a royalty thing. But what would you sound like? Well, how would you do this differently if you had the position? Would you even do it differently? I don't know. Before you criticize me, how would you do it? I know what I'm here to do. I have no misgivings. I have no confusions or delusions about it. And most of you know that too, which is why I'm getting the encouraging words. And sadly, a lot of people who should have known better have left because they couldn't see it. But that doesn't, see again, there are people that will think, oh, because I don't care if there's nobody in the room. Right now, there's almost nobody in the room. That's not the point. As long as I'm able to help some people, then it's worth doing. I don't care about individual people more than any other individual people. It saddens me when I am not able to reach anybody. Everybody, because it's his word. But if they can't see it, look, a lot of people, along the way, always you see the people that leave. Even Yeshua himself, and I'm not comparing myself, at one point it said that after he said what he said, a bunch of people stopped walking with him. It happens. All right, go ahead and make your 4 or 5 questions.
Okay, first one actually is a comment. Tracy says, accountability is why people don't want a true teacher. They do not want to submit. They want to be able to blame shift ear-tickling seekers.
Okay. And you said shift, right?
Yes. Yes, I did.
And they're all thinking, well, he can't be a prophet. He makes wise guy comments like that. You know what? I'm the 21st century version who grew up in New York City, who is not afraid to still be himself, because this is what Yahweh called. He called me. He didn't call, okay? He called Moses with his anger. He called this one with his, Thomas with his doubting. He called whatever. He called everybody with their stuff. Peter with his anger. Right? Whatever. I'm me. I'm not going to stop being me. Go ahead.
Oh, so true. I love it. Next one is a question from Janie. Are we to ask Abba for the fivefold like the Israelites asked for a prophet? If so, I pray that Rabbi is one of the fivefold and the other 4 will contact Rabbi.
I appreciate that. Okay, yes, we should be praying not so much for the fivefold, although pray for that, but pray for discernment to recognize those people for your life. Now, bear in mind, the fivefold is not necessarily restricted to being 5 different people. There are roles of which 1 or 2 people could do more than one of them until we have individual all 5. Okay? When I'm teaching you the tithing teaching, part of that is the role of teacher. The mechanics, how, what, when, where, that's teacher. How do I do it? What do I do? When do I do it? Okay? Why do I do it, etc. That's a teacher role. When I'm in your face saying, why are you not doing it? You need to do this. He wants you to do it. It's required of you. That's the prophet role. Okay? There's times when you might need someone to hold your hand, to carry you when you can't walk, etc. That's the shepherding role. So some people end up wearing more of these hats, okay? And I promise you, and I make a joke of it, that if you have to wear more than 3 or 4 of them, it gives you a stiff neck. It's a little heavy, okay? They're not baseball caps. They're like, heavy, like welder helmets or something, all right? I mean, they're not light, okay? But I would like there to be 5 separate people to provide that within our ministry. So I appreciate that. But you need to find, when you need a teacher, make sure you find someone who's a teacher. They may also be a shepherd or a prophet or whatever, but find someone who can teach you. If you have someone who's a prophet that never breaks things down as to how, what, when, and etc., then they're not teaching, then you need the teacher still in a different person. I try to do both teacher and prophet in every teaching. I want you to understand it, right? I want you to understand it so you can do it, so you can defend it, so you can teach it. Okay? And that's the teacher role. Then the prophet role is, then I want you to actually do it. I don't want you just to understand it so that you can do it. I want you to do it. Okay? The prophet is only concerned with taking what you already know and getting you to apply it. Warning Israel, if you don't do this stuff, it's not going to be good. Right? Isaiah, Jeremiah, the rest of them, right? You need to do this stuff or it's going to go bad. He wasn't telling them how to keep. When did you see Jeremiah explain to them how to keep Shabbat, how to keep anything? He did tell them that he saw idolatry and other things going on. He told them he needed to stop that, right? But he didn't give them instruction as a teacher. He was talking to covenanted Israel and saying, you're breaking this. Wake up before this goes really bad. And then it was too late. He said, this is going to go really bad. And I'm telling you, Wake up, or this is going to go really bad. I think we're at another time like that. You need to wake up, or for you, it's going to go really bad. Okay? Now, remember, when Jeremiah said it, he didn't cause anything to go bad. He just told them what was going to happen, and basically, Babylon was coming. Now, guess what? Babylon is coming, whatever that's going to look like. I'm just giving you the warning. Okay, next.
You have to go back and read some of these. A lot of great comments. Joe Gutierrez would like me to let you know, thank you for reaching me with the tip of the sword on my backside. I know that feeling all too well. Anna Zimmerman says, hey, Rabbi, could you clarify what exactly Deuteronomy 18 is referring to concerning prophet? I always thought this was Yeshua, the prophet, but I've noticed you said prophets, plural. Is it both?
No. Well, yes and no. What he's talking about is like, okay, I did explain this in other teachings. I explained it a little bit here. Moses is, at this point, preparing to not be their leader anymore. They're at the Jordan. He's about to pass the mantle on to Joshua. So Joshua is the first person he's talking about here. So when he says he's going to raise up a prophet, by the way, here he's saying prophet, meaning there's not going to necessarily be 75 million of these guys. For this group of people, there's going to be one, and you're going to listen to him. And it's going to be Yehoshua. It's going to be Joshua. And then it's going to go down the line as it goes forward, and it gets all kinds of sides and twists and discombobulated, and they were without leadership. Read the book of Judges, and it says this all was happening because there was no king in Israel. In other words, there was no authority in Israel. Israel was self-sovereign and just not listening to anybody. Okay? So yes, Anna, it is talking about Yeshua, and I think I did say that earlier, but it is talking about Yeshua and I didn't say it this way, but I've said it in other teachings. There's in prophecy, in other words, in the word, when it talks about things happening in the future, when it talks about that kind of thing prophetically, there's shadows of it, things that are happening repetitively to an ultimate fulfillment. So Joshua fulfills this. So does Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and all the other minor prophets. They all fulfill this. It's all pointing ultimately to Yeshua as the ultimate manifestation of this. But it's not even talking about the ultimate manifestation being Yeshua when he came in the flesh. It's talking about the ultimate manifestation when he comes with the rod of iron. And the word will go forth from Jerusalem. Right? The Torah is going to come from Jerusalem and Yeshua on the throne, and then you better listen to him. Okay? So not that you didn't need to listen to when he came in the flesh, but I'm saying, but the ultimate real fulfillment will be when he comes in power and authority. But this is referring to everyone that will have a leadership role of disseminating the Father's words or Yahweh's words into the people. From the point of view of from Exodus 20 when they said, oh, we don't want to hear from Yahweh directly. Now, this is going to be attacked by every single spirit, quote unquote, filled person that the Ruach is my teacher and I don't need a teacher. Oh, they're all going to attack this. That's fine. Just let me know how that's working for you the next time you call and ask a teacher a question. Okay, I want to, this is to all of you out there. I want you listening to me right now. I want you to get mad as hell and say, I'm not going to take it anymore. No, I'm kidding. All of a sudden, I had a Howard Beale moment. Staring at the camera. Every one of you out there, shame on you if you claim that you don't need a teacher and you dare to ask any teacher anything. Okay? Own that. Don't you tell me I have the Ruach, I don't need a teacher, and then ask for any help with anything scripturally. That's about as high a hypocrisy, that's like the height of hypocrisy right there. Okay? Just don't even waste anybody's time with that. I told you a couple of times, I watched a whole 2-hour presentation by people saying that nonsense, and the first hour was just eviscerating anybody that would be a teacher, and the whole second hour, they took questions and answered them for everybody. You saw it? Well, do you remember you saying it? Okay. I'll give the link to somebody if they want to see that. It's unbelievable. Why wasn't every answer to every question, go home and let the Ruach show you? That should have been the answer to every question that these people get. Well, I don't know why you're asking me. The Ruach will show you. Go home and pray about it. That's got to stop. If you have anything that you can't figure out in terms of your halakha, your walk, and you need to ask a teacher, that's because it's the way it's supposed to be. Find a teacher and stop fighting against your unsubmissive pride, ego, whatever it is, like I think Tracy said, that's going on in your system. He designed it that way. Stop fighting it. Okay? Just stop fighting it. Now, I'm not saying you have to come to me. I said find a teacher. Okay? But don't play I'm going to go ask a teacher a question, and then I'm going to go back and pray about it, ask the Ruach the question. What a game are you playing? I don't know what that is. Go ask your teacher, and then walk in what he tells you. That's Deuteronomy 17. Well, I don't know if I can trust my teacher. I'm not saying the person who's head of your congregation because it's a local congregation and there's no place else to go. And I'm saying find your teacher. Find a prophet. Find someone who matches Deuteronomy 18 and ask that person your questions. Don't just ask somebody because they're in charge of something or because they have a microphone. That's what you want to be praying about. Yes, you need to be praying, Abba, show me the fivefold. Find me those people. I need a teacher. But you got to start off with it's almost like Messianics Anonymous. My name is such and such, and I need a teacher. Okay? You have to get to the point where you can admit what you need. I've been self-sovereign. My way doesn't work. I need to figure this out. Send me the teacher. Show me the teacher. This is an old other culture proverb that says when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. How is a student ready? 99.9% of that is above the shoulders and in the heart. So it's just a little below. But I'm saying you have to be ready up here. You have to be ready for a teacher. If your head is not ready to submit to a teacher, to listen to a teacher, be instructed, you're not ready. So maybe you wonder, why haven't I found a teacher yet? Because you don't want one. Just like, look, I use the example I know this from people that personally, people that are smokers. They will quit when they want to. No, I know on a lot of levels, but I don't like that I smoke. No, not liking it isn't the same as not wanting to. Every sin that you do is the same way. You may not like that you do it, but you still want to do it. I don't like that I do this thing. Well, but you still want to. Well, I don't have a teacher yet. I can't find one, but do you want one? You're not going to find one till you want one. Not till you just like the idea of having someone ask questions. That's not a teacher that we're talking about. We're not talking about just having someone to ask occasional questions because you want to, take an opinion poll and just see what they have to say about it. We're talking about submitting. It says, Shema that teacher, that prophet. You need to Shema that prophet. You need to pray, Abba, show you who can you find out there but you have to be ready to do Deuteronomy 17 if you find that person. If they tell you, when you ask them, you need to do what they say. Oh, that sounds very cultistly. Look, did you not read what it said? I'm not making this stuff up. He says it's arrogance to ask them a question and not do what they say. If you're afraid of that, then don't ask. I don't know what else to say to you. I'm not making this stuff up. Your book says it. Okay. Next question. Yesterday was kindness. I'm trying to remember that.
Love it.
In our Omer Count Challenge.
Okay. Olivia and Janet Hoffman, Rabbi, chapter 14:14. Is this verse related to what you have taught us, that there is a way out in every trial Abba allows in our lives? And then she also added 1 Corinthians 10:13.
I'm 99% sure. Let me just double check. No, my answer I know, but I just want to see when you quoted the verse. Yes. Okay, yeah, that's the verse I would have sent you to. Absolutely 100%. 1 Corinthians 10:13 says that no trial is going to overtake you, such as is common to man. The Elohim is trustworthy, and he should not allow you to be tried beyond what you are able, but with the trial shall also provide a way of escape. Okay? And so That's Paul explaining Exodus 14 and applying it to them in their life 2,000 years ago. But way, centuries and centuries after Moses, okay? And so in that context of their world, he's saying this is how you need to apply this. And that still applies to our world today. That's exactly what I'm saying, 100%, okay? All right, and by the way, if you want to know what a prophet should sound like, and I'm not saying that proves anything, but the passion with which I just spoke to you all this stuff, that's not a teacher voice, that's a prophet voice. In other words, there's a certain tone or speaking that you do appropriately when you have different roles that you would have on you. A shepherd's voice is going to be much softer and loving and compassionate. A prophet doesn't care about any of that stuff. Just let's stop messing around and do this thing right, okay? Now, you can do that and have none of the energy and the passion or you try to muster it, it'll sound phony. But if it is, it is. And what you heard out of me was complete, genuine, just to kind of give you an example. And I didn't do that to give you an example. I'm just looking back at it going, when I changed voices to, okay, who's next? See, I can shift the tone. It's a different speaking voice, all right? Look, there's a time when Yeshua spoke when at the end of it they said, oh, this guy speaks like one who has authority. In other words, he's a prophet. He's not just speaking like a teacher. We have lots of teachers running around in Yeshua's day, but now he's all of a sudden being recognized that he sounds different. Not because he's literally the son of the living Elohim, but because of the way he was speaking. He changed the tone of voice. There's a special, different way of speaking, okay? It's a different level of authority. There's one kind of authority saying, by the way, if you want to do this, this is how you do it. You can do this, you can do this, and do this, and this. And another way saying, hey, you already know what to do. You know you should be doing it, but you're not doing it. Wake up, let's get this done. It's different. Just like if you're in a company, okay, there's a different authority going to come from the owner than from the supervisor. And there's an expectation that you respond differently. Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to add to your passion because that's ultimately what I think people can see and hear, and also the fruits of everything that you do. A lot of people can try to imitate passion and they can fake that passion only to an extent, but it always glorifies themselves instead of glorifying the Father. And I think that's a huge difference that people can see. People can tell when you care and when you just care about yourself, you know?
Hopefully. I appreciate that. Look, you can watch TV tomorrow and find some really yelling, screaming, passionate guys putting on a great show, okay? And you should be able to see the difference. I really am concerned for your journey from here to there if I don't punch through the noise in your life and in your head that's distracting you from the realities that you need to face in terms of your vertical relationship. And hopefully that's what comes through, you know? And one of the things I know is something that can also happen if you do find your teacher, a teacher, and you see that person, you recognize the prophet, et cetera, as the prophet, you can have one of the struggles I know Manny struggles with, which is, he gets frustrated watching people not see me the way he sees me, you know? Because if you can see it, and I'm sure the apostles felt that way about Yeshua. I'm sure there were those like Joshua felt that way about Moses. You know, when you find someone who's got a legitimate position, there were people that followed Paul, saw that about Paul, who were frustrated when other people didn't see him that way. And again, that's not, again, to try to elevate me into the company of all these big names or whatever. It's just the way, the responsibility of that position and the way the people who are dealing with that person, that position, if the relationship is there, would approach it. You know? Because he'll have somebody come to the congregation, sound like they're heading in that direction, get excited about it, and he'll come to me when it falls apart and goes, I thought there was somebody that really saw this the way I do. And it disappoints him. And I get that. And I have, empathy for that. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Angela would like to know in reference to Exodus 14:14, go forward. Mm-hmm. How do we know when we are to make the move forward in our own life with our own personal trials?
I think I gave you the answer. You call the counsel that you need from the leadership in the structure. Because who told them to go forward? Moses. Well, really Yahweh, right? But Moses, the leader, was the voice of go forward. Yahweh said, tell them to go forward. So what did Moses do? He told them, go forward. And so if you don't know when to go forward, you don't have anybody in your life to tell you, let's move, go. All right? Go ahead. See, again, I'm not picking on that person, but you guys are not listening. I'm not saying it like in a scolding way. You're not hearing all of the stuff I'm trying to tell you. This is the structure for all the things you're missing. You're missing it because you're not utilizing the structure. Well, how do I... The structure is the answer to almost every question you have because it's all him in that structure. Okay? So the structure is the answer to all of these things that you don't know what to do. Because when you don't know what to do, I'm not saying it's the answer to everything. I mean, the Torah is the answer, Yeshua, the Father, etc. But when you don't know how to apply or when to apply or what to do, he gives you the structure to help you with that. And so when you feel stuck and frustrated and this and that and all these other, contact the person. Well, I don't have the structure. Well, you're online now. You're vetting me. Figure it out. All right, next. I'm sorry. It's just, and I'm not mocking anybody. I appreciate when you give me the opportunity to say these things. Please don't feel picked on. Okay?
Okay, I think this is regarding something you said earlier. Pete and Brenda Lamb. Matthew 23:12 validates what Rabbi is saying.
23:12? Right, and whoever exalts himself shall be humbled, and whoever humbles himself shall be exalted. All right? But if you look at 23, continuing after 12, he's going to attack the physical leadership of that time for all the things they were doing wrong. Not for being leaders, but for doing it in an exalting themselves. The whole issue of chapter 23 is self-exalting. And I explained that in the teaching that talks about call no man rabbi and this other thing. That whole issue of chapter 23 has nothing to do with titles, has nothing to do with whatever label you put it. It has to do with self-aggrandizing, self-exalting, to be seen by man. Okay? So if you think I'm doing this to just get lots of views on YouTube and followers to some benefit to me, well, I guess you're missing the whole thing. Okay? You don't know me at all, and you've missed everything. Okay? I promise you there are few people on this planet that care more about you going from where you are into that kingdom than I do. And if you can't hear that in my voice every week, I don't know what you're listening to. Okay? Why do I get so passionate? Why do I yell so much? Because I know, as the questions will demonstrate a lot of the time, that there's too much noise in your head which is blocking your ability to hear what I'm saying, which means you're not hearing what he's saying. Because everything I'm saying is from him. Because I'm reading his word and putting it into words you can understand. But you can't receive it because of all of the static. Okay, if you're old enough, you know what I'm talking about. You remember with the TV or with the radio, if it wasn't tuned in exactly right, you would have static, which make it very hard to hear what was ever supposed to be broadcasting. This is all static, and that static is things not so much as noise so you don't hear me, but it's all these preconceived, pre-embedded understandings that my teaching you something in a totally different way is swimming upstream against. There's just this thick walls of, I already understand it this way, so now I can't receive it that way. And you wonder why I'm swinging so hard with my sword to blast through all of that. Okay, like a laser from my mouth, just to blast through into your ears. Can you filter through the stuff that you've already known and just listen to the simplicity that he's giving you through me? Okay? This is just simplicity itself if you would just listen. But you can't because you're listening through all the filters. You have to take all those filters and get them, you got to discard them. You got to push through all the filters. You cannot receive, it's like you cannot serve two masters. You cannot hold in your mind two opposing thoughts. Okay? So if I teach you something that's in opposition to something you already believed, You can't receive mine unless you let go of the other. You just can't. You cannot take in a new thought. Look, Nicodemus, in the, what do we call it, picking on Nicodemus. Okay, Yeshua's talking to Nicodemus. He goes, you are a teacher in Israel and you don't understand these things? Well, he did understand them, but not the way Yeshua was saying it. And he couldn't receive what Yeshua was saying because he was so locked on to what he already understood. And Yeshua was looking at him like, you're a teacher and you don't understand these? He said, well, I always understood it a different way. I didn't understand the simplicity of what you just explained. So that's also why you can go back and should go back and listen to things that have already been taught, and you'll hear them differently when your brain is now ready to hear what you couldn't hear before. That's why people hated my Are You Saved teaching, not because I was wrong, but because it was 100% diametrically opposed to something they embraced deeply. The once saved, always saved thing was being destroyed by the teaching. And unless you could let go of that thought, you couldn't receive the new one. Everything was filtered through that. So when I'm reading Deuteronomy 18 to you, I told you, but you heard it, but you're not listening. I told you it is Yeshua. And then I stopped talking about Yeshua and went into all this other stuff for like another hour. And you forgot that I still said it's about Yeshua. I'm not picking on whoever asked the question, but that's a problem. It was always about all of them and Yeshua. The people are being prepared for Joshua right here and being told, you better listen to him. I haven't anointed him yet, not in Deuteronomy 18 yet, but when I do anoint him before I leave and you guys cross the Jordan, you need to know I've given him that position of prophet. You need to listen to him. Okay? All right, next question.
The comments are amazing. I got to say thank you to everybody. It's good to see positivity
Well, I thank you
and
too,
encouragement.
That advance,
Having to, especially with having to deal with so much anger, rage, bitterness, and mockery, especially that I have to deal with daily, almost 24/7. It warms my heart to actually see some encouragement and some positivity online. So thank you, everybody.
Okay,
right.
I'll look at some of them. I have it on now, but I don't want to be distracted.
You have to go back.
I will.
It's a ton.
Okay, I'll go back. Look,
okay.
I am concerned, though. There's 666 people in the room right now. Somebody leave or somebody join. No. Okay, now it's 661. There you go.
Perfect.
If you're afraid of that number, you got to just let that go, okay?
If only you had a teaching for that, right?
Go ahead.
Okay, here's a question that I think you can probably address for people, because I know this, I get this a lot. I get asked this question a lot, and a lot of people are asking now. If people want to be a deeper part of this ministry or want you as their teacher, what process can they do now to feel more connected with this ministry, or to have you as their teacher, or to be a member of MTOI? Okay,
that's a good question. Let me make this simple. I'm going to shut this off so I'm not distracted by it. All right. We're not like some of the churches out there that have memberships, like formal memberships, and you take a membership class and blah, 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 blah. You are a member, just like you're covenanted if you do the things that are required for covenant. So what's required for membership? Well, you come to live streams consistently. You participate in the chats and as far as being a member. You come to events that you can, if you can possibly, not everybody can do it, but you come to Passover when we're allowed to, and Sukkot and that kind of thing. All right? You have this as your place for your, maaser and truma, your tithes and your offerings. I mean, that's what a member does. You don't need to have a formal, conversation with me. I'm certainly not against it. I'm saying you don't need to have a formal conversation where you ask me if you can be a member or for me to be your teacher. And I appreciate when people do that, and people do that often enough, but it's not necessary. What's necessary is that you're listening to the teachings and that they're being applied in your life and they're bearing fruit. So how do you be a member? You do what a member would do. There's no formal ceremony or relationship that needs to be initiated. All of you that come every week on Shabbat, you're members, okay? If you're sending in your tithes and offerings, if you're attending feasts, if you're on Tuesday nights, if you're in the Facebook group, if you're in the Marco Polo groups, if you're becoming an active, what do you think a member of a body does? If we were there, back to the days when you're in a local church, what did you do? You showed up when they were running events, and you did the social things that they did, and you interacted with the people, and you listened to the leadership. So if you're doing all of that, you're a member. Okay? You're a member. And again, I only mention the tithes and offerings, not because, except for the fact that why would you be giving it to other places if this is where you're a member? Okay? If you're not a member of any place, then give it wherever you give it. But if this is where you're a member, this is where you should be putting it. Okay? So these are the things that members do. We are going to, maybe, I'm thinking about it, I'm trying to see if we can put it together, come up with a formal written description of what a member of the group looks like, what they can expect from me and the leadership, and what I expect from them. Okay? As a member, you should expect that you can get counsel when you need it. All right? Now, we also have the proselytes, the ger, the spectators, the guests, and they have other expectations that they should expect from us as the leaders. They should expect hospitality. They should expect questions to be answered as they're vetting us. They should expect, there's a lot of things they should expect as prospective members. On the other hand, I would not expect the same thing out of a prospective member I would out of a member. Okay, I don't expect a prospective member to show up every week. Okay? I don't expect prospective members to be necessarily wearing their seat yet or whatever it is that they're needing to do and showing up at feasts and that kind of thing. They're figuring it out. Okay? I don't judge them either. I'm just saying I wouldn't have an expectation. By the way, if you're a member here physically, locally, I'll tell you what I expect. When we are open for business, so to speak, bad term on a Sabbath, I guess. When we are actually allowed to have people come here, I expect you to show up. I don't expect you to stay home and just lay on your couch and stay in your jammies and watch this on live stream. Okay, I expect you to make the effort to drive the 10 minutes to an hour and a half or whatever it is that you have if you're a member. Now, if you live nearby and don't come all the time and not a member, that's fine. See, now the rain is starting to come. Hopefully everybody can still hear me fine. I know on the live stream they can because it goes right into the system better. It's here locally. But you understand? If you're a member, the body that you're, not me, I don't need you to show up. The other members need you to show up. Remember, we got two great commands. One of them is horizontal. That's the Marco Polos, the Facebook groups, the chat right now on the live stream, the Tuesday night chats with the live and the interactions with each other, the feasts where we interact with each other, the Shabbats where do not forsake the assembling together. So if you're a member, I expect you to be here unless you are sick. Unless there's an actual reason why you should not be here. Okay? That's the answer to the question, hopefully. Do what you think a member does and you're a member. How's that? If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, blah, 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 it's probably a duck, you know what I'm saying? So if you act like a member and do the things that a member does, you're a member. It doesn't, we don't need formality. I'm not going to send you a certificate of membership, okay, or a subscription for your membership or, with an auto renew or membership fees. Their synagogues charge membership dues for members of the temple, members of the synagogue. We don't do any of that stuff. If you are one, you are one. Just act like one, be one, do the things expected, you're a member. Okay, next question.
Amen. Okay, so we have another question regarding something you had said earlier. I'm sure this will jog a memory. UC Renegade says, Judges 4:4 says Deborah is a prophetess and female, so they can be both male and female, then even though Moses said brother?
Yeah, but look, you have some exceptions and rare moments. She was a judge, and so we have her serving in a judge role. And we haven't really done a teaching on judges, from the book of Judges in those roles. But you got to remember, Samson was a judge also. Not really everything goes well with a judge. Okay, so let's not always think of the role of like judge, meaning they got to sit on a judge seat and they got to make judgments and that kind of thing. right? Because you don't see Samson doing that either, okay? So in the book of Shoftim, the book of Judges, but she did have a role at a point to speak with authority. You do see a few rare ones. I'm not saying that women can't do the role, but he does say, I'm going to pick out one from among your brothers. Primarily, the role falls to men to do, and we need to get the men doing it. Okay?
Okay, we have Rick Berry, who's right over there. He wanted to know if you could comment on Luke 7, 27 and 28 regarding what Yochanan did as a prophet.
No. Okay, next question. Luke 7 what?
27, 28.
Okay. You know, I don't take live stream comments from people standing in front of me. Okay. He's behind the camera. This is he concerning whom it has been written, see, I send a messenger before your face who shall prepare your way before you. For I say to you, among those born of women, there is not a greater prophet than Yochanan the Immerser. But he who was least in the reign of Elohim is greater than he. So what's your question, Rick? Yes, okay, so Rick's just connecting up what I was saying by saying that his role as a prophet, okay, was to declare and spare not. He was out there saying, hey, wake up, repent, and be immersed for the forgiveness. He was trying to get people's attention, speaking with authority, all right? And so he was the greatest among prophets. Okay, he says there wasn't a greater prophet than Yochanan. Now, by the way, saying there wasn't a greater prophet than Yochanan doesn't necessarily say he was the greatest. It says, I think they have it all in equal role. Okay, but he's trying to endorse Yochanan's authority here. But he's also trying to tell people, as great as you think Yochanan is, remember, he had to deal with a transference of ministry in the day that he was starting his ministry, which was, there was a huge group following Yochanan. And there seemed to, and both of them didn't want there to be any competition, which is why very quickly Yahweh allows Yochanan to be taken out of the picture. And Yochanan said, I need to diminish, so he elevates, so he increases. Because there was this sense among the followers of competition. My teacher's greater than your teacher, you know, one of those nonsenses. You see Paul getting this with Paul and Barnabas and Apollos, you know, oh, I'm of Apollo, I'm of this one. All right. No, stop that. Okay? Huh? Yeah, there you go. Okay, so, but what he's trying to do is say, look, but the ones who get into the kingdom, they're greater than all of this. In other words, it's in terms of fame, in terms of accolade, not in terms of power and understand. But he said, look, once you're in the kingdom, you will be in a higher respect position than all of this. Okay? Than even the prophets. All right, so, you know, because there was a lot of misunderstanding of how to honor people in different authority positions. You know, the people that were walking around, the Pharisees and Sadducees, the high priests, all these people were treated like royalty as opposed to elevated, honored servants who were serving the body. They were literally looked at like royalty. All right? Okay, wait, actually, I have a side comment that I think would be helpful at this point. Okay, so I'm going to give a somewhat of a sideways endorsement. I don't know what that means. To the 8-episode series called The Chosen on YouTube, okay, that you can watch. I watched the whole thing. I hadn't watched it before I made any comments last time. It still calls Yeshua by the Jesus name, but you will see some things that I think are very interesting in terms of what I just said. Nicodemus and others are honored in a way almost like royalty, not just as exalted teachers. The Pharisees are walking around like, how dare you not talk to us? Now, Nicodemus is the humble guy in the bunch. So he actually is represented in a very good way. But his students and some of them are walking around like, you know, we're like royalty. How dare you just not even like bow down to everything and kiss our feet? So you could see some of the stuff that I'm sure was happening in Yeshua's day. So I thought there were some really interesting things there. A few things that are not biblically accurate, and a lot of it is backstory stuff that they're making up that has to do with stuff that they found in peripheral writings that they're kind of extrapolating out and stuff. So it's interesting for that. But I think you might get something out of it as far as, you know, to watch. If you watch the live streamed episodes by the guys who made it, you have to skip through the guy who produced its pre-show. Then you get to watch the show for 45 minutes, whatever. Then you listen to them for another 45 minutes. So you can skip all that because all it is kind of a very mainstream Christian sort of way of producing things. But they do absolutely get a lot of things. All of Yeshua's disciples and students are wearing tzitzit, and things like that. So it's interesting to see how they have that worked out. They have them sort of on the long robes, almost dragging on the floor to whatever degree. But most of them are wearing tzitzit and things like that. I don't think we see him wearing them, but there's some interesting things that you see on there. The one thing I thought was very disappointing was Nicodemus is shown studying and the Hebrew in his hand is upside down. But I don't know how they did that. Okay, but anyway, but you will see some of what I just said and what Yeshua was talking about in Luke in terms of, and in Matthew 23, in terms of the attitude of the Pharisees and the scribes and these elevated teachers actually thinking that you should basically be in awe and reverence of them just because of, and you see, of course, a very humble Yeshua. And I actually like the way they portray Yeshua quite a bit in this, they have him joking around and being goofy and other things that you may not want to think Yeshua would do, but, I don't think it spoils anything, but at one point at the wedding at Cana, they're picking on Peter for his brother Andrew not having the ability to dance very well, okay, having 4 left feet or whatever. But anyway, so they finally get to the end of the episode and they're actually dancing, and they say to Yeshua, hey, can you fix that? Because says, even things I can't do. He goes, there's some things even I can't do, he said. So I like to think he had that kind of sense of humor, They make him so unlike human beings in some of these other things, But I think he was very much a very righteous, perfect being but he was, why would you want to spend forever with a being that has no sense? If you read anything and you spend your life, Yahweh has a sense of humor, okay? There's no way he doesn't have a great sense of humor. And so, there's some things like that where he goes, some things even I can't fix, he said, or I can't do. And that was after he did the water wine thing, So anyway, so it's interesting stuff. I think it's interesting stuff in terms of, look, if you have to have stuff to watch on a Friday night and you're trying to figure out what's appropriate, that may be something to watch. But look for things that you think are not right. You're going to have to tolerate the name that's being used there as best you can. I found it irritating because I think if they got the name right, the thing would have been actually a whole lot better. I would have liked it better because they made an effort to get so many other things right, including the emphasis on Shabbat and trying to get Shabbat right. They really did a bunch of things that I thought were very much from a Jewish traditional point of view, a Torah observant Jew, from that period of time, like to understand what the Jews of that time would have been like. So they did a lot of research for that. Some things I'm like, okay. Anyway, but I think it was good. It was good. So I'm giving it that sort of sideways endorsement. And the only reason I brought it up is because Rick mentioned something I think that you can see actually watching those episodes. You can see kind of the problem that Yeshua was addressing. This vanity that the leadership, they'd gotten into this very vain, ego, prideful, they were like the royalty of the community, okay? Jeremiah wasn't ever treated like royalty, neither was Isaiah, the rest of these guys, And neither was Yeshua for that matter, okay? So, and I certainly have no interest in being treated like royalty, and this is the kind of thing that, is being addressed. So thank you for bringing that up. And I will tell you, so they're thinking of making a second season, okay? Because he hasn't even gotten all 12 and hasn't really gotten started officially as much as by the time this thing ends. But, anyway, they got a few people to be good. Really interesting, they chose to make Matthew have Asperger's. And it works really well, actually, to show a handicapped person with these challenges in a role because he has a brilliant mind for numbers as a tax collector, and they just chose to do, and I guess they found writings that showed that Matthew was kind of quirky or something, so they chose to kind of go in that range. But it was just very interesting to have, a psycho-emotionally handicapped person be part of the 12 and, watch him come through that. So it was an interesting choice. I think it worked. I'm not saying it's right, but it works for communicating another aspect of the message. So it was just interesting how they did that. All right.
Okay, Nigel had a question. How does Deuteronomy 13 fit into what Rabbi is speaking about here? The prophet who speaks stuff that actually comes true, but is not following Yahweh seems more dangerous to me.
It is much more dangerous because when they say it and it comes true, you're much more susceptible. When they say stuff and it doesn't come true, it's more easy to reject it. But the problem that comes is if the person has been somehow emotionally, you have an emotional attachment to them for whatever reason, and then they say something that doesn't come true, you're less likely to care that they said something that doesn't come true because you already have an emotional bonding with that person. You're bonded to them in some way emotionally. Okay, but yes, if you listen to the false prophets teaching I did, it covers, it launches from Deuteronomy 13. So yes, there certainly is a more dangerous thing to that because that person's trying to lead you away from Torah directly. But you know what? The false teacher, is also ultimately leading you into a not pure version of Torah because they're telling you things are going to happen that don't happen, and then what else is going to be the problem after that? Okay, what else? I'm sorry, I'm going to do it to you again. Just because I said the Deuteronomy 13 is more dangerous don't minimize the danger of the Deuteronomy 18. Okay? Danger is danger. These are both things that can get you in the same ultimate trouble. All right? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, let's see. MTOI Urbana, Ohio had a comment. They say, also love how Moshe said in Exodus 14:13 and 14, he finishes by saying, and you keep silent. This is the point many miss. Stop and keep quiet, both with your talk and inward self-talk.
Yeah. Silent, there used to be a funny sign that my father had in his office, and I've seen them in other offices, companies that produce things, that do some sort of production where they make something or they, develop something, and it'll say something like, this is how much I charge if I do it, this is how much I charge if you try to give me assistance or comments, or, this is how long it takes if you just let me do it, this is how long. We got to stop thinking that once you give it to the leadership that you need to be any more involved in it. You don't get to direct it. You don't get to guide it. You don't get to influence it. You don't get to try to manipulate it because you don't like, how it's coming out and what the leader is going to tell you to do or whatever. This happened, for example, not too long ago, maybe a year or two, before we moved to this building. We had a lady in the congregation who wanted me to pray. And so we went into a side room, brought some of the leaders in there. We're going to go ahead and anoint with oil and pray. And she was aware that during prayer, I often say that, Father, we ask these things, and this is what we would prefer, but nevertheless, your will be done, and, that you have the right answers. And she started to interrupt me as I was about to start praying and tell me, oh, but don't do that thing when you do this, and don't do it this way. And I stopped, and I said, excuse me? I said, you asked me to pray. You don't get to guide that. Okay? And then she started to argue with me. So I just stood up and said, well, then I'm not going to do it. And I walked out of the room. I wasn't offended, by the way, and I wasn't throwing a tantrum. I just said, that's not how this works. And so either you want me to pray, and then I will be happy to do that. But if you are going to do whatever you're going to do, why do you need me? I said, that's not the way this works. And I walked out of the room. Okay, and some of the guys just looked at me like, I can't believe if you want me to pray, then I'm going to have the Ruach guide me as to what to say. Now, it wasn't like she was giving me more information about what the issue was. She was literally trying to control what I said. And I said, well, it doesn't work that way. I don't know what I'm going to say. I may not have said that thing you're worried about. I don't say it every time. I was going to just beseech the Father on your behalf for this physical ailment, and she had, a serious enough, legitimate, serious physical ailment, And so I was going to pray for that. But see, that's the be silent thing. Once you bring it to the Father, or you bring it to the leadership to bring it to the Father, you've done your part. There's nothing more for you to do. Oh, but wait, you didn't add this part. Oh, wait, that's not what I intended. Oh, wait, no. You asked, and this is what you got.
Okay. Betty would like to know, let's see. Although I am thankful to have a relationship with Adonai, but the question is, why does Adonai want to have a relationship with me?
Say that one more time.
Although I am thankful to have a relationship with Adonai, the question is, why does Adonai want to have a relationship with me?
No idea. No, I'm not saying that to pick on you. You guys have heard me say this all the time when I do the, the kind of little game I play with eventually, like, if you got to live forever and everything else, Yahweh's plan. I always say, for whatever reason, it's his desire to live with people forever. I said, I don't understand that. You don't know. I mean, we hardly can get along with each other for a few hours or a few weeks or whatever it is. So I don't know why he wants to live with you. I don't know why he wants to live with any of us. And so I'm not picking on you at all. He desires, and that's why he created human beings, to spend forever with human beings. But he also recognizes that human beings tend to go off into la-la land and do things they shouldn't do, etc. So he gives us a finite life in order to show and demonstrate relationally that we can be filled with integrity and trusted, and then we can be transformed into the incorruptible and forever. Why? I haven't the slightest idea. Nobody does. This is his plan. Okay, so I'm with you. I'm glad he's decided to want me to live with him forever, and I will make every effort to qualify for that. Oh, there he goes. You're talking about work, salvation, blah, 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 blah. Read your scriptures, but not through the filters, okay? Listen to Are You Saved? Listen to the relational stuff about that. He wants to live with people forever. He has a process. You have to be found worthy. You're supposed to walk worthily of the master. That's a qualifying statement, okay? To be worthy means you qualified up to a standard called worthy, whatever that looks like in his mind, in his eyes, which is why we're supposed to seek what is worthy in the eyes of the master, what the great desire is of the master, so that we can be worthy. So I work on appreciating his choice and striving to be worthy. Now, as to why does he do this? Why did he pick you? No idea. And don't worry about it. It's not relevant why he picked you. His desire was that all men be saved. So in other words, he really picked everybody when he created us. But we've made our own choices as to whether or not we will choose to accept his calling. And that was the whole idea between, called and chosen, etc., Hopefully that answered that question. So please don't take it wrong. I think it's the right answer, okay? None of us knows. Every one of us has a life we've led that says, why would he call me? Look at me. Matter of fact, if you watch that show, and when he does finally call Peter, Peter just falls on the floor because he is a mess. Before Yeshua calls him, they show him out that he is a mess. I mean, he's breaking Shabbat. He's doing all kinds of stuff. And he's a mess. And he falls down before Yeshua and says, you picked the wrong guy. And he's crying. He says, I am a sinner. I am not. You just don't know. And of course, Yeshua's like, of course I know. But we all have that moment like that. We're like, why would you call me? Don't you know the things I've done and I've did this? And none of us, generally speaking, I was thinking, none of us really feels worthy. We certainly don't feel worthy of being called when he did call us, because he called us when we were at our least worthy. So that's my answer. All right. Okay, let me answer a question that did pop up on here. Why don't females preach? I made the mistake of looking at my phone. Look, here's the thing. Listen. Attention, ladies. Wait, let me cover my upper lip. No. That's not an unclean thing. It's just that that's what I explained in the Torah study, what it means to say you could shout loud. Ladies, please listen. All right? The number one reason, survey says, all of a sudden we're on, that show. Family Feud, number one reason why women don't preach or shouldn't preach is that the men need to do it first. Okay? I'm not saying whether I would ever decide to let women preach or not. I'm simply saying it's not even a question till I get the men doing all the things the men need to do. And ladies, you should appreciate that you want your men to be standing up to doing what they're supposed to do. And you know full well that if I put the men to do anything, if I put the women to do anything they know that the men should be doing, the men will never do it. You know that. You've seen it in your house. You usurp them, and now they will not do the stuff that they need to do because you've already stepped in and taken it away from them, and now they don't want to do it. You want the men to do what they need to do, stop doing what they need to do and let them do it. So until I get the men where they need to be, this is not a question for discussion. Okay? I don't have a problem entertaining the discussion once I get the men to step up. Is that fair to everybody? Hopefully that's fair to whoever put that on there. Okay? Okay. All right, so there's two questions. Well, first question I can't answer. I have not studied that level of what the females that are called prophets, what their lives are like. His first question was, were they married? And my answer is, I have not studied the few people where the word prophetess was linked to them, so I've not studied that very much, so I can't really answer that question, but I can look it up. The second question had to do with culturally, how was that handled? Well, clearly, culturally, all the way back to Deborah's days, Deborah was known as a judge and a prophetess, and you can see how that was handled. Okay, like everything in the book of Judges, it was a mixed mess. Okay, all right. And so now in Yeshua's day, yeah, again, even to today, women in positions that men traditionally might hold or were intended to hold, are received well in some cases and not very well in others. It just depends, Some places embrace that. Look, the Reform Judaism movement, and even now into some of the conservative Judaism movement, once it opened the door to women, they're now dominated by women rabbis. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying that culture can certainly be, there's parts of our culture that would never do that, and parts of our culture that only are now sort of leaning in that direction. Okay? So, but that's a discussion for when it actually becomes an issue. And what I'm trying to tell you from my leadership point of view, it should never be an issue till I fix the real problem, is getting the men to step up to be what Abba intended when he created man. Okay? All right, so once I get that settled in, then we could discuss this other issue. That will take a little while, though. And that's not an excuse to push something down the road. I'm just telling you, this is a work. And ladies, you want to help this go faster? Stop doing their things and let them step up and do it. He's never going to do it if you do it. I'll give you the example. This is sort of a chivalry example, but I used this example in the past. I took a singles class when I was single in Worldwide Church of God. They had all the singles in a room, and they started teaching the ladies and the men certain things they thought was good for singles. And this one was really good, I thought. They said, men, okay, you need to open up the door for the ladies just to be a gentleman. This is not Torah, but just to if you're courting and you want to impress the ladies, walk around the car, let them out. Remember, this is old school people teaching things from an old school point of view back in, the early 80s, okay, the early to mid 80s. So this is not, the guys teaching come from like the 50s. Okay, so they're really more old school. Okay? Now, bear in mind, what they said, though, ladies, this is the important point of it. If you're out on a date and the gentleman pulls up to the restaurant and you would like him to open the door for you, don't get out of the car. Wait for him to come around. Oh, but what if he goes in the restaurant? Oh, he'll realize you're missing at some point. If he doesn't, he's the wrong guy. But if you sit there and wait, he'll figure it out. First thing he'll think is you can't figure out the lock. What's the matter? You can't figure out the lock? But you know what I'm saying? It's one of those things, ladies, if you want him to do it, you're going to have to wait and be patient for him to do it. Well, what if he messes it up? He might. He probably will. So what? He's never going to get it right if he doesn't get a chance to mess it up. Okay? You're never going to get the man to be the man that you want him to be in your life, and you're supposed to be the helpmeet for if you jump in and do things he should do. That doesn't mean you can't do it at some point, but unless he's doing it all the time and appreciates you helping him with it because you know he's not going to just quit on the whole effort to do it, don't usurp that and just, because you like to rescue. You're going to jump in and fix the situation because he's taking too long or he's getting it wrong or whatever. Well, he's never going to get it right. It's like doing that for your kids. Your kids are never going to figure it out if you don't let them mess it up a little bit. Let them figure it out and mess it up a little bit. All right? You want to teach your kids how to cook when they're young? They're going to make a mess. If you cannot handle the fact that it's going to be a mess, they'll never learn. You can't do it without becoming a mess. They're kids. They're going to knock something over, overpour something. They're going to ruin it. That's okay. Don't yell. Don't scream. Have fun. Same thing with your husband. Don't yell. Don't scream. Have fun. You'll survive. It'll be okay. Let's get the guys where they need to get first. And be a helpmeet. Be their cheerleader. Believe in them. All right, is that it? All righty.